Because it's so early in the morning and everybody be slogging, but this is amazing. I am so grateful to be here. Thank you for the privilege of being able to come and speak for you today. My company is called ClearSkye Life Transitions, and it's a pioneer startup. It's not just a startup, it's a pioneer startup. So that means there's no other company like this in the entire country. So it's a challenge to get the marketing going and so forth, but what ClearSkye Life Transitions does, it provides creative solutions for men and women that are going through complex life-altering events. So relocation, divorce, separation, any major life change that you could think of, ClearSkye Life Transitions provides solutions. So I have personal services and then I have professional services. So I have plans, I have a concierge service, and then my professional services are team building, public speaking training, and conferences, workshops, and so forth. So this has been something I've been working on for quite a while. ClearSkye Life Transition has as its foundation emotional intelligence. If you think about some enormous life change you've gone through, and maybe you haven't yet, but that's coming, the stress of it oftentimes knocks you off your game. So you're not thinking clearly. I like to think of it this way, like your brain kind of falls out of your head. So, and you make maybe decisions that aren't the best ones. And so what you need to do is really go through a process of transition in a way that's deliberate and you're thinking correctly. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background why I created this. Like, people have asked me, like, where did you get this idea from? And basically it's from my years of experience. I did youth ministry, I taught college, I did a bunch of different things, but it really, really came to light because of my experience, my personal experience. I went through a great loss myself. I went through a divorce, and it was really, I didn't think it would ever be a big deal, but it was huge. From the outside, everybody looking in, they saw a person with a perfect life. My spouse and I, we were both in ministry. We were, the shiny people. And we had done amazing things. I worked in an orphanage in St. Croix. I taught college in Japan. I was the addictions counselor at a homeless shelter for 20 years. I taught college psych for 20 years. I've done a million things. And then media as well. So, I mean, I did a lot of these like overlapping. So everybody was like, oh yeah, your life is just amazing. Underneath, not so much. And then to make it worse, I was a pastor's wife. And the humiliation that went with this, I can laugh now because I'm past it, but there was a tremendous amount of embarrassment. We were known across the country. He looked like Richard Gere, so we were like this team. And so when people found out, they were like, oh my goodness, if they fall apart, we can fall apart. And what I decided to do, since it was public, I said, you know what? I can't go through something that's this dense, this difficult, without turning it around and using it to help other people. And so the purpose of ClearSkye has one of the pillars of it is gratitude. I'm grateful that God got me through a really, really difficult time, and I'm thriving. So I'm trying to walk the talk. So when I have people that come and I have clients and so forth, I'm trying to live the very thing that I'm talking about, which is largely emotional intelligence. So I'm creating this company because now I'm going through this really difficult time, and I'm running into other men and women that are floundering, that are lost, that are running to they're running to wine and all kinds of addictions to try to deal with the pain. And it was really, really tragic to see this, and I'm in the middle of all this, and so I started to figure out, what can I provide for people that are going through this? There's no one. You Google for reviews of different attorneys and financial planners and psychologists and all this sort of thing, and you're lost. It's like this sea of craziness. So I sat down and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something motivational for women that are going through a really difficult time. And so I created a motivational conference. It was the first ever. This was 4 years ago, for women going through divorce. And it was an amazing, amazing event. So there was all kinds of breakout rooms and motivational speaking and a fashion show and so forth. And then from that, I peeled off ClearSkye Life Transitions. I really lost everything in the divorce. It was really difficult. So I came down here. I'm from up north. I'm like a New York, upper New Jersey girl. And you know, I was turned kind of upside down. So I said, okay, I've got to reconfigure this. And I created ClearSkye Life Transition. And so it's a stone. So it's a pioneer startup. I'm polishing it over time. And it's going quite well. Now, adversity has a way of making you into a better person, don't you think? I mean, you can make it, it'll make you a really like bitter person, or it makes you better. And I chose to try to make it and have it make me a better person. I try to be more thoughtful and kind, so I'm exercising my EQ advice that I'm going to give to you in a minute here. And I guess you could say that all the misery sharpened my EQ. So you never know what someone's struggling with. In the room right now, we're all doing our thing, right? And everybody's got a heartache. Maybe not now, but in the future, that might be the case. And I think it's always important to know that just because you see the smiling face on the outside doesn't mean that there's not a person that's struggling on the inside. If you keep that in mind, it really gives you a way to chart your course as you deal with people. Now, let me give you just a little bit of how I'm going to handle this today. It's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to do a bird's eye view. Okay, so super quick, express train, so hang on, stay awake, and I think you're going to really, really like this. A brief history of EQ. How this all started is back in 1990, there was two psychologists, and they wrote an article on emotional intelligence. And so it kind of percolated a little bit, didn't do a whole lot of anything. And then Daniel Bowman, I'm sure you folks have heard of him. He's the one that wrote Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. And so he wrote this book, and it caught on like wildfire. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this resonates in such a huge way, right? Like, yes, it's awesome.
My son.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
Yes, and he's got some sequels as well, which we'll mention in a minute. So he just went gangbusters with this, and he's made a ton of money. But I'm sure you know that emotional intelligence has been incorporated in the Fortune 500, mid-sized, small-sized companies, using for training and HR assessment and a variety of things. Also, businesses popped up that market emotional intelligence programs and so forth. Talent Smart, does anybody see that on LinkedIn? They got some very cool stuff that comes through. In education, in healthcare. Actually, I have a connection with the military with doing some emotional intelligence with the sailors' families, and also veterans and other industries as well. And so for me, I think emotional intelligence basically is almost like it's old-fashioned common sense unpacked. You know, if you think about it, it really makes a lot of sense, right? Okay, now what is emotional intelligence? Let me give you a quick definition, okay, because there's a million out there, and so I put this together. It's about as succinct as you can get it. And let's see, where I lost my place here. Where'd it go? Okay. It's the ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others. Okay, so you can recognize what's going on inside of yourself, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior in relationships. Okay, so it's not about being, you know, so self-aware that you can't deal with other people. So I'll say it again. Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior in relationships. So really, EQ is like an internal thermometer. Okay, so some people run really hot, like a lot. You know, like doesn't take much, and boom, they're off the mark. Or you have some other people that, you know, they're just enjoyable to be around. They're just like, it's all good, whatever. You know, they're nice and relaxed. Now, in your mind, just to get you kind of a little bit more engaged with this, picture one person that you've encountered during your lifetime that is the most emotionally intelligent person you've ever met. Just get a snapshot in your head. Okay, give me one adjective you'd use to describe it.
Non-reactionary.
Okay.
Empathetic.
Empathetic, great.
Caring.
Caring, yeah. Any more?
Centered.
Centered, great. Okay, now let me flip this. I want you to get in your mind a picture of a person who has got the lowest EQ you've ever met in your life.
How many?
Yeah, pick the star. Pick the star of the bunch. And what adjectives would you use to describe this person?
Selfish.
Yes.
Paranoid.
Yeah.
Narcissist.
Okay. All right. So we all hope that this group looks like the most emotionally intelligent group I've ever seen. So I'm hoping that you're in the first group. Now, there's 5 elements of emotional intelligence. You know, there's so much research out there. It's crazy. This has exploded, this field. So I've distilled it down into 5 different elements. And the first is self-awareness. You know how you're perceived by others. Okay, so you know how basically people react to you and so forth. You can regulate your emotions. So self-regulation is absolutely key. You can achieve emotional equilibrium. So for example, how many drive on the Parkway to get here? Yeah, I'm not a fan of Parkway. and you know, they're mean. These people want to kill you, you know? So it's very, very difficult to remain in control when you're in a truck, like literally gonna, you know, mow you down. But in those moments, if you chase the other driver, if you flip him off, if you do whatever, as opposed to going, you know what, he's got a problem, and you let it go, that gives you a little like barometer of emotional intelligence. And I'll tell you, I'm working on this one a little bit more. And then third thing is motivation. You've got to want to change. You've got to want to be a better person, right? If you've got no motivation, you think you're great, you've got it all nailed down, you probably don't. So motivation is really important. Empathy, you know, that is absolutely critical to emotional intelligence. That's really foundational. And it's walking a mile in someone else's shoes. And then lastly is social skills. This is, you know, we don't see a lot of social skills these days, I think. I don't. But manners, personal space, small talk, humor, when to speak, when to be silent. And social skills actually segue into another cash cow for Daniel Goleman, which is social intelligence. So that's a whole other field that maybe we can look at another time. Now, how does EQ differ from IQ? Does anybody have any ideas?
Well, one is your intelligence. The IQ is measuring your ability to learn things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right, just because you're smart doesn't mean you're effective.
Right, exactly, right. There's
The
very...
The emotional part is a different part of the brain.
Mhm.
So it's definitely different from the comprehension part, right? So we're talking about 2 different sectors of understanding.
Right, sure. So there's really different brain functions that are involved in that. There's very little research, believe it or not, in the connection between IQ and EQ, which is surprising. Because if you have a field that's exploding, you'd think that there would be some kind of like volumes of research, but there's not. So you can't predict how emotionally intelligent someone is from their IQ score, like, oh, I'm Mensa, you know, I've got an IQ of 160. Well, good for you, but we don't know about the rest of this stuff. So IQ is thought to, and there's some modification to this, but fixed at birth. So IQ is like you take a test when you're younger, and then through middle school and high school or whatever, and that's supposedly fixed. There's, you know, some argument with that. So it measures your ability to learn and reason. EQ is a flexible set of skills that can be acquired and improved. So that's really good news. You can increase your EQ, so there is hope. Now, okay, here we go. There's 15 signs of emotional intelligence, and we're going to bang through them really quick, but it's not going to be a problem because in your brain you can see which ones you're pretty good at, okay? First is you have empathy. So if a friend gets upset or starts to cry, you don't run away from them. You might want to sit and talk with them or comfort them. Number 2, you embrace change. You can go with the flow. Even if you don't agree with that change, you say, okay, that's the way it is, let me figure it out. Number 3, you know your strengths and weaknesses. And so you're self-aware. You're not easily offended. A thin-skinned person is very stressful to be around. Do you agree, someone who gets offended, like you're walking on eggshells all the time, just trying not to say the wrong thing? I have a family member who I've not seen in a while, and she can clear a room like nobody's business. She walks in, and she just gets offended, she cries, she's just, oh, it's just too much. So, yeah, so you're not easily offended. You're a good judge of character. You know, there's some people that sneak under the wire. We're not, you know, clairvoyant, but you basically are a good judge of character. You're excellent at interpreting nonverbal signals. People say that you're very intuitive, so you get that kind of feedback that you have this particular gift. You're curious about people. You're curious about others. This is key. Curiosity drives your interest in others and makes you other-oriented. There's nothing worse than like me, myself, and I person, you know? Like, let's talk about me today. All right, you know, that's just really super boring, right? And you know how to say no to yourself and others. No to that working third weekend in a row or that extra piece of cake. So you can self-denial, you know, so there's a lot of self-control there. You forgive and move on. Now this is really key in business because people offend us, people are annoying, people are all this. Now what does forgiveness in the business world mean? Well, oh, so I'm supposed to forget that? No, 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 there's a completely different thing. Forgiveness is no longer acting on a prior offense, okay? Doesn't mean you forget, but let's say, you know, with Jeannie and I, there was a little bit of a thing, you know. Forgiveness is, you let it go and you just act like normal. You know, you treat them with kindness. You're not passive aggressive. You don't do all that weird stuff that you do when you get angry, when you feel like doing it. You can neutralize toxic people. I have a friend who is a master at this. This person can be breathing fire, and they just come in, they've just got a way, and they can just dial them down. Tremendous gift. It's wonderful to have people that are super gifted in your life because you can emulate them. That's a great thing. You are grateful. If you have a colleague, or maybe you're this way, you complain, complain, complain. It really drains the life out of everything. And if you're grateful, it is impossible to complain and be grateful at the same time. It's just completely different. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. And so even when times get difficult, like in a life transition, if you find those things to be grateful for, if you're in the workplace and there's something that's really driving you nuts, you try to find the things to be grateful for, it puts your brain in a different place. You stop negative self-talk in its tracks. Okay, we all have the inner voice that tells us the insecurities and all that sort of thing that, you know, we could really go there with it. And that's like a bottomless pit. You can just, if you talk, if there's negativity, oh, I can't do this, or that's not going to work out. Those words, when you talk like that, you bring them to life. And so that is really, really important that you can just stop where it is. You're authentic, real to the bone. Everybody that meets you knows that you're not a phony, you're a fake, you're a straight shooter. And that kind of person, they jump right out at you. And you tend to be attracted to them, right? It's like, I can tell that they're totally real. You praise others. Genuine compliments, not to get the raise or to get something out of someone to manipulate, but you genuinely see the good in people. Like, you know, you have an outgoing personality and an awesome joke in the beginning. It's like the best. You know, you find something that's really gonna resonate and ring true with the person. You keep your word and commitments. Now this is really, I think, this day and age, a little bit rough. I don't know a lot of people that keep their commitments. Time-wise, you know, kind of dump you the last minute for another appointment and so forth. But you keep your word and commitment. So if I put you on my book, you're on my book unless something really major happens. You're a great listener. Okay, that is the hardest thing in the world to do because it requires focus on something else other than yourself. Now, a good listener is not about sitting there, and thinking about what you're going to say next. No, that's selfish. That's being self-centered. Okay, so it's really, really to sit there and to think about and process what they're saying and unpack it in a way that helps them almost understand more of what they're talking about. That is really, really a rare quality. Now, I don't know how you scored in your brain, but if you've got most of these, congratulations, you're an EQ genius. Yay! And you know, if that's the case with you, you're probably held in high esteem by a lot of people. Maybe you're more highly regarded than you realize. Now, can you increase your EQ? Yes, and I'm going to give you a few ways to do it. You need to become aware of what makes you tick, your emotions, your triggers, and your weak spots, and figure out a plan on how to deal with them. Like if you have an anger issue, if you have a gossip issue, if you have a whatever, you've got to find out what that is and make up a plan. This is tough. Ask others for feedback. Let's say you're at a meeting at work and you were aggravated about something and you kind of asserted yourself a little bit beyond what you felt comfortable with. Maybe afterwards you say to a colleague, "What was I out of line?" And that's tough because they might They might be really jerky and say, yeah, you're an absolute idiot. Or they might be kind and actually give you constructive feedback. Another helpful thing for increasing your EQ is after something happens that really kind of rattles you, whether it makes you angry or sad or whatever, is you need to pause. Don't react. Stop and think. If you get that email from someone that's really kind of nasty, do not sit down and bang it out and then press send. You're going to regret that. Decompress, cool down, let cooler heads prevail, and then dial the whole thing. If you want to react like this and you think they deserve this, back it off, because you burn your bridges and it always comes back to haunt you. Practice empathy. Okay, that's something that maybe is easier for some people. Some people are natural born empaths. They just feel another person's pain and so forth. But regardless of where you are, you can stop and say, ask yourself, like the question, what is it like to be them right now? Even somebody that's like maybe a little bit nuts at work. I work with a few of those. Well, why are they acting the way they are? And maybe there's something really difficult that's going on at home. Maybe they have a kid that was just diagnosed with cancer. You don't know what people are dealing with. And then lastly, when you're criticized, you need to ask yourself, is it true? It's easy to deflect. Oh, that's dumb, that doesn't make any sense. But if you say, is it true? That's where you start to grow, because you're willing to look at the deep stuff. Now, I'm going to ask you, what are some workplace benefits to having high EQ?
Retention of team
Excellent.
Team members.
Yes. Right. And why is that? Why did they want to?
People want to work with a leader that's enlightened.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
They buy in to change a little more easily. So that happens all the time in an office. I was a manager for a long time. If they feel like you don't care, they're not going to be cooperative with change.
Right. You're exactly right. Yes. Any other ideas? Well, there's quite a few, and retention, and yeah, is a really, really important one. Better morale all the way around, right? I mean, if you're like a positive, encouraging person that finds people's strengths and encourages them along the way, people are gonna human motivation. When somebody's nice to us, we trip over ourselves to try to do better, right? So the positive actually moves people towards the behavior that you're looking for. You stink, you're horrible, you're late, you're that, just shuts people down. You know, so high EQ is really going to make people perk up a little bit more, keep them around, and keep them happier. Any drama that's going to erupt in a group of people is going to be short-lived. If there's people that are skilled, leader on down, giving guidance, it'll be short-lived. It's not that it's never going to happen, but it can be short-lived. There's better communication. Okay, so if you feel like your boss or you is someone that people can approach, you're going to be a lot more, just foster a sense of communication that is just healthier. Less conflict all the way around, and who doesn't want that? Better decision making. If you don't have all this other stuff, it's easier to make decisions, right? Because you're not going through all this muck. Increase productivity, and of course increase retention. Now, how can we apply EQ to the workplace? Do you have any ideas?
Buy the book, hand it out.
Okay, a book. Okay. And
No,
then,
buy that
oh, buy
book
the
and
book.
hand it out.
Okay. And then, so how do you make sure that they've read it and they understand the contents?
There's a change in a couple of weeks.
Yes, you just pray it. Yeah.
You can create a flyer with the highlights of emotional intelligence, pass it around, or keep it somewhere in the lunchroom where they can view it on a regular basis, just as a subliminal reminder.
Okay, great.
Lead by example.
Yes. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
stories of good modeling where there's been success in productivity and team retention based on a higher skill level of leadership.
Yeah, yeah. It's so important, yes.
Once a month, do this.
Yeah. Yes.
Talk about it.
Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
into the workplace with your workers.
Yeah.
And
the great thing about that is super idea. You can do these mini lunch and learns, and you break down emotional intelligence. That's what I do. Break down it into components, whatever is needed. Like, let's say there's some weird situation that's going on in an organization. They need attention for this. Well, you can structure a program and then target that specific thing. Because this is a lot. this is a tremendous amount of information. But if you target it, it's easier to see if there's results rather than if you dump the whole thing out.
And you're not pointing fingers at anyone.
Exactly.
You're up to everyone and
Right.
in their head,
Mhm.
their
Yeah.
individual.
And it doesn't matter how emotionally intelligent you are. You could all benefit, and everybody can improve no matter where